As a medical professional, I'm gonna let you know that's not normal. That is definitely off.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Pixels After Dark. I'm one of your hosts, Joe. With me tonight is Ruby, the PixelatedTraveler.
Hello.
And the one and only clap master, Tyler, TCillustrations. What's up, buddy?
Bye.
And we have an amazing guest with us tonight. And this person, individual, blew me away coming into the call today because I was not expecting what he came in. He just came in with like a ta-da, and he's got a fully blown. His character is on my screen, which is blowing my mind right now. We have Ace with us. Ace, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, hanging out.
Being part of the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not watching the live stream or checking it out, Ace's screen is probably about a 10,000 book library. It's pretty epic, and it's his static character. So if you follow him on Twitter, it's the character that you see right there is the character that we're chatting with tonight, which is pretty wild. Ace, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Anybody out there that might not know who you are.
Sure. So I am, I guess, a designer. I think a designer is probably the thing I do the most. I kind of do a little bit of everything. I'd say I'm a master of none more than I am a jack of all trades. Design, logos. I guess, I don't really know. I do a lot of everything, like I said. It's hard to pin down.
You dabble in a lot of things, but you also do some work over at the Destiny Items Manager team.
I do. Yeah, I am the designer for DIM as well, yes.
Did you make that sweet logo?
I did make the sweet logo.
Oh, man. You have some... Go ahead.
That was like 2019? That was like 2 years ago. I had just done... And this is 2 years ago. So this is before Dr. Lupo got really big. But the reason I mentioned him is because the way DIM found me was I was just looking through like Twitch streamers that I liked at the time, and I was like, how would I do their logos? And again, this was like before Twaz did Lupo stuff. So Lupo was one of the people I did, and that's how I ended up, because Lupo retweeted it. But I did a bunch of people's logos that I liked, and I was like, this is what I would do. This is just for fun. Nobody commissioned me to do any of these. And I threw it out there. And it got more attention than I expected. I got the attention of the guys who made DIM at the time, and that's how it all started.
That's awesome. Wow. It's crazy that showing that community support, just doing some, creating logos for people just because you love creating, and then having it take off from there, but working with iconic people from the communities like, Dr. Lupo. But you also we were talking earlier, you made the Grenades and Horseshoes logo, which I'm a huge fan of the Grenades and Horseshoes show and team, but it's been on hiatus for a while now, but the logo is still iconic to me, and I own multiple t-shirts and pins of that logo. I love it so much.
Nice. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to work on too. I'm really grateful for a lot of the stuff I got to do. It was, like I said, once DIM kind of took off, I got probably a lot more attention than I deserve. So I got to do a lot of fun stuff, and that was cool. I got to stay on DIM too, because I do a little bit of development. So I was able to kind of poke my head in there and make some PRs and do little things here and there and stay relevant enough to be, considered part of the team. And I thank them for that too.
That's awesome.
I get to go to Guardian Con though this year.
Did you?
To represent DIM, so that was fun.
Did you run into Ruby while you were down there?
I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ruby's face.
Scored me some stickers.
Nice. Ruby was just all smiles the entire time she was down there. I could tell too. She had a blast. Probably exhausted though. I'm sure you were too. Were you at one of the booths?
No, so like Ruby said, I had stickers, and I was kind of just like going around talking to people about DIM and giving people stickers that use DIM, and anybody who didn't use DIM. So I had 1,000 business cards for people who didn't use DIM, to like, oh well, here it is. I handed out like 11 of those. Apparently, everybody knows what DIM is, which is great. But yeah, the whole time I was on my feet, I was just I was on the beat, and I was going around talking to people who use DIM. It was really awesome, actually. Like, I got to do some of the fun stuff too. I played Gambit. I got a coin. I played Borderlands.
Oh, nice.
While I was in the line for Borderlands 3, actually, I was talking to this family. So I got in line, and I had just come from the Bungie line because I just wanted to get that stuff done before everything got too crazy. And there was this family. It was a mom and dad and a son. I don't know, he's probably like 10, 11. And they all played Destiny together, which I thought was super cool all in itself. But so they were in line, and I had just come with my emblem code, and the lines for Bungie were getting like super long, and they had talked about how they couldn't do it last time because the lines were crazy. So I gave my emblem code, and I introduced myself, and I was like, I help make DIM, and I gave them the stickers and stuff, and they're like, holy crap. And they just come from meeting, I think it was Say No to Rage. And the dad said, he's like, this is the guy's autograph you should be getting. And I was like, that's awesome. It's like, I'm not, but that's awesome. But it was just cool. They all like pulled out their phones, and they all were like showing me their favorite emblems on DIM and stuff. And I was like, man, this is probably the coolest interaction I've ever had, talking about something that I helped make. I was really cool.
That's awesome. I was hyping it up today to my best friend. He's always asked me like armor loadouts, and there's so much to DIM now. I mean, it's always growing. I mean, it's literally your one-stop shop for everything. It makes everything so much easier. But he's always harping me like, dude, you're just going to have to come to my house and go through my gear like you did back in like a couple years ago, and set all the perks I need to, mod everything, do everything you need to make my guy awesome. And it's like, if you just open your computer for a second and go to DIM, there's a thing called a loadout optimizer right on the top. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, then I got to learn that. I'm like, nope, they learned it for you. Just press the button.
Just press the button.
You got this, man. But no, it's awesome. That's awesome. I contribute to DIM every month. I'm one of the contributors. Yeah, I love it. I don't know what I'd be lost without it. That's for sure. So you got
me too. Us too. I mean,
you know what? It's not just the players and everything. I'm, the creators and people working behind the scenes at DIM, no doubt uses it too. It's just you guys know how to use it a little bit better than the rest of us.
Yeah, that's how stuff like that starts, right? I mean, somebody's like, man, there's an API, and it'd be great if I could transfer stuff between characters. So you make a little something for yourself, and then eventually, it gets a little bigger, and other people are using it, and they're like, "Oh my, this is crazy!" And then it just builds from there.
Right on. Give us a little bit of background on you. When did you start really diving into just being so creative? Like, I know a lot of people start out as when they're children, drawing on their kitchen floors and underneath tables and using scrap paper and stuff. But did you go to school for art or programming? Or
I did. So I have a design degree. I went to school for art. When I was a kid, I mean, I loved doing it. I was drawing all the time. Probably like, I don't even know if I have my old sketchbooks, but there's probably a lot of DBZ characters in there, Nintendo characters. I used to love to draw them. I was into like marine biology when I was a kid. I feel like I say that all the time to people. They're like, what did you want to be when you grow up? And I say marine biologist. And I feel like a lot of kids wanted to be that for some reason. But I just find that funny. But I would draw like whales all the time. I really like to draw whales. I painted one on my wall when I was a kid. My mom let me do like a mural on my wall of like some killer whales. That was really fun. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing it forever. Same with like music. I started music in middle school, I guess. I started with saxophone. I'm sad I dropped that because as a kid, saxophone's kind of dorky, but as an adult, saxophone's like really super cool, and I wish I could still do it. But I got into guitar because that was like the cool thing when you're a kid. So I played that forever. Yeah, I mean, all throughout, I took like AP art and had to do a portfolio and all that in high school. I was actually into sculpture back then. So I worked with sheet metal, and that was my whole entire portfolio was a bunch of sheet metal sculptures.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I got into college. I did, I was going for the BFA and I was doing sculpture and stuff like that. That's my concentration. I just ran across like a sculpture teacher, and him and I just didn't connect very well, and kind of spoiled it for me a little bit. But I still wanted to do art, so I just kind of started branching out, and I took drawing classes and painting classes. And at the time, I'm going to show my age a little bit here, but at the time there was no graphic design degree at the particular college that I went to. It just wasn't like a huge thing yet. There were classes, but there wasn't a full-fledged degree not until the last year I was there. And so I started taking the design courses. I really liked them. It was interesting to me, like how you could apply kind of like artistic values into something practical and like problems. It's essentially problem solving with art. So that was like really interesting to me. So I started taking as many of those as I could. And luckily the last year I was close enough that I just had to take like a main-mester to get one extra credit to actually get that design degree. So that's what I ended up with. So yeah, all throughout, I started really young and I kept going all the way through. Things fell off here and there when you have a bunch of things you like to do. It's music, it's art, it's design, it's coding. Really, coding didn't start until much later, but we can get into that too if you want. But yeah, things fall off and things come to the front. So, when I got really into music, I really wasn't making as much art. I think that's why design persisted the most for me, because there's a bit of design in literally everything. So when you're an artist, you still have to brand yourself and present yourself and do all those things. You have to do a lot of design work. When you're a musician and you want to go DJ clubs, you have to have a logo, a business card, this or that. You're always designing no matter what you're doing, really. I like to say that everyone's a designer. Everyone is always designing. It's not like an exclusive thing. It's not a club. Everyone does it every day. Everybody makes design decisions every day. So I think that's why that persisted with me so much, because I was always doing it no matter what I was doing.
Love that.
That's really cool.
You nailed that too. I never thought of it like that. There's design in everything. Everybody is designing. I slice an apple for my daughter. I'm cutting those slices into designs. I'm doing, it's literally all around you. That puts it in a different perspective for me. Different frame of frame of thinking. That's awesome.
Just the clothes you pick out in the morning is technically designing. That's setting up who you want to represent yourself as with your image, kind of thing. So it is kind of cool that you can apply that to any aspect of life.
Irez is in the chat, and he figured out a design right there. Figuring out where the restrooms at a restaurant are is creative. If you've ever been to New York City to the Jekyll and Hyde Club, this is my little rant. I love this fact about this place. It's kind of like a novelty restaurant, like a franchise. So it's like this one's the Jekyll and Hyde Club, and then there's like a Werewolf in London themed one in Chicago, and they're kind of all over the place. This one in New York, it's like 5 different levels. You enter through a dungeon, the walls cave in, and then the door opens up, and it's a secret bookcase. But in this place, they don't tell you where the bathrooms are. Their bathrooms are actually hidden in this place. So it's, they resurrect Frankenstein every hour, and it's all sorts of different themes on every level. The masks, the mounts on the wall have cameras in them, and there's people that literally razz the customers as the mounts. So it's wicked cool. But the men's room, I found the women's bathroom in this place before I found the men's room. And theirs was hidden behind a bookshelf. And if I didn't see somebody the wall open, I would have never found it. But it was really embarrassing when I walked in there because it was not the right bathroom.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But anyways, that's my rant. I'll edit it later. No.
Did you use the excuse, this isn't where I parked my car?
No, I just said this is the wrong bathroom. And apparently I wasn't the first one to do it, and I definitely know I won't be the last. I know, just getting back to it, I know Ruby brought up a little while back that you were into music, and you just shared that with us too. What kind of music were you working on? I know you said you played saxophone.
Yeah. So I played saxophone. That was the first instrument I ever played when I was a kid, and that was just in music class. When I was in middle school, we had to your first year, you had to do the three, what they called the arts. You had to do a music, art, and it was like home ec, tech ed, and you had to take all three. They're kind of split. And then after that, you had to choose one and do it the rest. So I obviously chose art, which is why I didn't continue with saxophone. But after that, I started playing guitar, and I was into like what every kid in that era was into, punk, Blink-182, that kind of stuff, Green Day. So I was playing a lot of that kind of stuff. And then as I got older, I started doing more like blues and stuff. I wanted to play like B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like I found those things like really interesting. And Eric Clapton, like a ton of Eric Clapton. I love to play that. And then when I got into college, I still play guitar, but you're more of in like a party mindset, I guess, in college. So a lot more electronic music. So I was getting into Daft Punk was really big at the time. Old Daft Punk, like Discovery, and Justice, and Danger, which Danger came a little later, but that's somebody I attribute like a lot of my style and kind of ideas to. He just has a similar like aesthetic that I like. But yeah, so these days that's kind of what I make. I make like, I don't really know what you would call it. I kind of just make whatever comes to me at the time. Well, I'm not trying to plug a SoundCloud here, but on my SoundCloud,
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff in there, man. It's all over the place. I don't know. I think I just kind of make it, and it is what it is at this point. It's just kind of like when you sit down to draw or something, you don't really have something in mind. You just let it kind of go. That's how I make music now. So it's kind of just, this is what I'm feeling right now. Take it or leave it. So
that's awesome. So you don't have like any restrictions then? It's just like a complete musical release.
Yeah. I don't have like a genre that I really adhere to. I just kind of make whatever comes to me. Like there was one time I decided I wanted to make a symphony, which is really just like a 4-part thing, right? So each act is like subtly different in some way, but they connect. So I decided I wanted to do that. And it sounds like nothing I've ever really done before. And it's probably my favorite thing I've ever done. It's just like weird. I used a bunch of like weird instruments that I was kind of cultivating, that I tried to make like what if a drum was a drum, but you played it like you played a flute? Or what if you had, I don't know, like a guitar, but you played it like you played a drum? So like, what would that sound like? What would that feel like? So I tried to use sounds like that, and I don't know, it turned out really cool. I liked it. But it's I don't even know what genre to call it. It's so weird.
So if people wanted to listen to this, what would the SoundCloud be?
So the SoundCloud is the only thing that's different from all of my other stuff, because I made it eons ago, but it is Sky Kid. I think it's Sky Kid Music. I'll double check here. Yeah, Sky Kid hyphen music on SoundCloud. That was a long time ago. I have 2 profiles on SoundCloud, actually. But I don't know which one has the symphony, actually. Maybe it's the old one. I think maybe I put it on here, too.
I'm curious to check that out, because I like when, who did it recently? Well, not recently, but Skrillex. He did one of his songs in like a orchestral version.
Yeah, like symphonic kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because you listen to the original version and you're like, yeah, that's cool. And then you listen to the orchestral version and you're like, holy cow, this is actually incredible. How many different sounds he gets involved in the same song that he already mixed, Yeah. So I dig that stuff. That's cool.
I think the other one and that one has a symphony on it, is Lilt Music, Lilt Music. That one has a symphony on it. So again, when you talk about design, when I did have the Lilt was basically my DJing days. So that was when I was making like pretty much all electro house, because that's what I was DJing at the time. Your French touch stuff, your Daft Punk, your Justice, Danger, Wolfgang Gardner, that kind of stuff. So a lot of that sounds like that. And for whatever reason, the symphony was made then. I think that's kind of when I was transitioning, but it's on there.
So you really went from a couple of different genres, from sculpting to design to possibly DJing kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know how I really transition. I don't know. I think I just I get inspired by something. And I'm like, I wonder if I could do that. And then I think probably one of my like worst traits is that I end up like over getting into something that I know nothing about. So like when I started like doing the DJing and stuff, had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what software to buy. I started with like old school stuff, like a tape deck, and I was like, I could mix songs together, and that was the first time I ever did it. And I did, and it sounds terrible, and I love it. And I have it somewhere. It's on a cassette tape. But I don't know. I just want to see if I could do it. I guess it's like curiosity. It's like, I really like what I heard or saw. I wonder if I could do that. And then, so I started with that, and then I was like, okay, I can definitely do this. Of course, looking back, it was terrible. But that moment where you make something and you're like, oh, I did this, you get that kind of like adrenaline. You're like, oh, I can totally do this. So then I usually have a habit of like overspending into my hobbies where I'm like, all right, well, let's get the $600 software for DJing, and let's get the microKORG that's $800, and let's get this. and then you kind of have to do it, right? And you're like, okay, well, here we are. So
that's pretty cool though, because I feel like all those skills kind of help you in what you're doing now with Destiny Item Manager in a way, just with the programming, the art, and combining those two things. I mean, it'd be cool if you found a way to include the music as well. I don't know how you do that, but
I do sometimes. So when we released the DIM logo, we released an animation of it, kind of like so that we could. I probably had that somewhere too. It's on Twitter somewhere, I'm sure, but. Basically, we wanted kind of like an animation logo to kind of show where the concept came from. So it was basically the inventory. So it was like we did a vector, kind of like really simplified inventory of DIM. Mm-hmm. And then the logo kind of animates over the items, because if you notice the DIM logo, if you turn it sideways, it outlines the items, which is like one equipped and then a box of 6.
Right.
It outlines the items, and then the middle dot is the center item. So we kind of animated all that in, and there's a track behind it. There's music behind it, and I made that music. And I do it for people I brand a lot too. So I did like KJ Hovey's logo, and when we revealed that logo, it had a whole chiptune track behind it, because that's like his thing. Like he's really into Zelda, and it was a really big direction for the logo. So that kind of stuff.
I love
it. I try to incorporate it when I can.
Yeah. There was another logo that you did that had, I forget who it was, but it was similar, where it had the, like you said, kind of that old school,
I think Geeks also had the chiptune.
Yes, that's who it was. Exactly. She's one of my favorite streamers, because to me, she reminds me of Lyric, just like a female version, where it's that rude, crude humor, but it's hilarious at the same time. So I really enjoy watching her streams. And I remember when you did the thing, because I don't even remember you working on it, and all of a sudden it got revealed, and I was like, that looks really familiar.
Yeah, that was fun. Like I said, I try and do that when I can. I don't charge for that stuff either. So like when I do the music and I do like the reveal, I don't usually charge for those, because it's something that I want to do. It's never been requested. I'm just like, would you like me? I want to do this. Do you not want me to do this?
Right.
Because I don't know. It's just. It's you get into making, and you're like, oh, I have this idea. Like, what if it was, with Hovey's, I kind of just animated it in, and then when it hits, kind of the song breaks down. And with hers, I kind of wanted to do like a kind of like a old school video game when you're sitting on the start screen kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like, because it's like the clouds rolling in and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of just like the logo kind of hovers there, and like some clouds are just kind of.
Yeah,
it's really chill.
No, it does. It brings you back, at least, for everyone kind of our generation and older, it does bring you back to those old school, like Nintendo days and stuff, when you first boot up a video game and you're so excited about it, That's, I don't know. I really enjoyed that one when you released it.
Dude, I love all the animations that you've done. You did one for Siva, with the animation, like the logo for the Siva lights up, it glows, and then the background just forms behind it like Siva.
Yeah.
And the Wayfarer, I think, was the most recent one I saw, where you took the Wayfarer Triumph that you could get. You can see it if you play Destiny 2. There's a Triumph for Wayfarer. But you animated the entire center of it, and it was orbiting around itself. And it's like, man, why didn't Bungie buy this? I mean, look at this thing. This is awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. So I like to do that too. I like to make my life harder by trying to take things that you could probably do pretty easily in like After Effects or, and I was like, I wonder if I could code this. I wonder if I could make this so that it could be used on a website, SVG or something like that. Or The Wayfarer one, I decided to really, really, really make my life hard and not even use SVG. There is nothing but pure HTML and CSS that makes the Wayfarer logo. Nothing else. There's no JavaScript. There's no SVG. So I didn't animate anything in Illustrator and port it over. Everything there is a shape made entirely by code and animated entirely by code. And I just wanted to see if I could achieve that. The answer is yes. It was fun. Wow. It was a lot of fun.
It's like mind-boggling. I don't even want to get into how you did that.
What's so
anything can be learned.
One time I caught him animating a bouncing ball. Like, you know, that intro to animation class you take, and it's like the bouncing ball.
Yeah, the squishy ball.
Pull that off using code. That was so impressive.
Yeah, that was another thing I kind of wanted to. I remember you being in there. I actually did two. I have one that like hits the wall and splats, and one that bounces. But yeah, I was like, you know, is that concept? I was like, you know, when everybody starts drawing like and animating, this is like animation 101. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, this is how I animate. Could I do this? Could I do animation 101 the way I do things? So that was, yeah, kind of just like a, could I do this kind of deal? It was fun. It turned out well. I was surprised. I did not expect that to go well, but it was okay.
So how'd you get into coding?
So that starts when I got out of college. So I have my graphic design degree, and I am one of the unlucky first wave millennials. So I'm the oldest millennial. And when we got out of college, we were in the largest recession, and you know, graphic design was not being hired for at the time. The money wasn't around for that kind of thing. That was just not what money was being spent on. So that really wasn't working out. So I had my sheet metal experience from sculpture. So I started working at a construction company hanging ductwork, because that's what I could find. And like I said, I had experience with sheet metal and working with it. So I was doing that kind of stuff. And the receptionist there, her husband worked for a company that did security for a Fortune 500 company. So it was like, I knew nothing about security. I don't have a criminal justice degree. I don't have any of that, but it wasn't hanging sheet metal. So I was like, this sounds great. I'm interested, you know, if you can do anything. So I got that interview. I walk into the office of this security company, and they ask you those three questions. Do you have police experience? No. Do you have a criminal justice degree? No. Are you former military? No. And they're like, what are you doing here? And so I name dropped the guy, and they're like, oh, okay. So apparently he was very important. And I got the interview. And in the interview, they asked if I had any SharePoint experience. I don't know if anybody knows what SharePoint is, but
yeah,
it's kind of like like WordPress for companies, kind of ish. I had no idea what SharePoint was. I'd never heard of it in my life, but I really wanted the job. So I said, yes, of course I can do that. 100%. So I get the security job, and I'm working, you know, I'm a guard behind a desk. That's what I'm doing. And people are badging in. That's my job. So, you know, moment of truth finally comes. They're like, hey, can you put a scrolling marquee on our SharePoint site? And I was like, sure. So Google University, I figure it out. I put the marquee up, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. So they keep asking me to do things. I keep going to Google, and I keep figuring it out. I think this is where like the design stuff really helped me, because I'm a firm believer in anybody can go to Google U. If you have the drive and you want to do something, it's out there. And I've watched this podcast many times, and I've heard many people say the same thing. The internet is the ultimate learning tool, right? And if it's anything you want to know, it's on YouTube. It's out there. Yep. And that's very true. If you have the will to do something, you can do it today. Like, there's no excuse. But just putting up a marquee is one thing. Putting a marquee that functions well and looks well, honestly, you shouldn't put up a marquee if you really want to be a good designer on web, but that's besides the point. I really think that kind of helped me when they started getting this, all right, well, can you make a web page where people can go and do this? So that is, yes, a coding problem, but it's also a design problem. How can people come do this and understand what they need to do when they come to the website, blah, 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 blah. So I think my design experience really came in handy there and kind of excelled me forward faster than I would. So I started making websites for them. I stopped working behind the desk. I started working on websites. And eventually the company that contracted that company to do security, it was like, we saw this website you guys put up. Can you make us a website? And I was like, I don't know. Ask my boss. And my boss was like, sure, you can do that, but we're going to charge you extra for every hour that he works for you. And I was like, I didn't see any of that money, but whatever, I was fine. I got to make more websites, right? But I got to make more websites. So I kept making the websites. And eventually this company caught on, and they were like, why are we paying this contracting company all this money? Why don't we just hire this kid? And we can pay him a fraction of the amount. And, and of course, so they offered me the job, and I was like, yes, please get me out of here, because I hated that place at the time. And here we are. So I'm still at the same company. Very fortunate. I have no idea how I got there, because, like I said, good old Google you. So that's how I got into coding. Interesting story.
Yeah, that's crazy. It like doesn't follow any traditional path at all, but it's amazing how it worked out for you. And just goes to prove hard work will get you pretty far.
Very, very fortunate.
So that's what you primarily do then now is website design?
Yep. So now I'm basically like a front-end developer, and we make web applications for that same company. Internal stuff, nothing that you can go visit today, but we basically make, apps where people can go and like get reports to do the jobs they need to do every day, or we've made a bunch of stuff, but yeah, that's what I do today.
That's pretty cool.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I don't even have words. I got to go to Google you. I mean, that's, you tell you the truth, I think I go to YouTube you more than anything. I think we're just going to move along right now. Tyler, you want to write research?
So I guess we'll dive more into the art aspect of what you do. So let's say someone's hiring you for a rebrand for their Twitch or anything like that. Do you do a lot of research for those projects, or do you kind of just dive in, kind of take what they've asked for, and you already know where you're going with it?
It depends on who it is. So, like with Hovey, I was already in his stream all the time. I knew basically what I was going to do for that. I had an idea and I ran with it. With like Geek, I wasn't watching her streams much. I definitely knew who she was. I had watched, but it wasn't like something I was frequenting. So I did take the time, and I sat in some streams. I followed her on all the social medias, and I kind of looked at all the stuff, and there's research done there. And she had something specific. I think it was magical girls and pixels and RPGs. That was her description for me.
That seems really broad.
So that was kind of like what I was trying to make there. So something that encompassed magical girls, pixels, and RPGs. So that's kind of where the starting screen came from. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what if this was an RPG? And, the logo is made of pixels, but it's got like the magical girl staff and stuff, and the vaporwave aesthetic that she really likes. And so, yeah, there was definitely some research that went into that. So I guess it just depends on what it is and if I have a concept I want to run with or not. Some things are easier than others.
Right. Do Destiny Item Manager, do they do kind of the same thing? Do they give you kind of a list of like, hey, this is what we need right now, can you bang it out? Or do they kind of give you free reign?
I don't think they had anything. So with Dim, it was like, that was kind of a process. So with Dim, it was a little different. So they approached me, and of course I knew immediately who they were, and I was like, oh my god, I fangirled a little bit. And I was like, I'm really going to get to do this. Like, I need to do this. So I did a lot more on Dim than I do for a lot of people. So I try to keep myself regimented. I actually don't do commissions that much, because the more I do them, the more I dislike them. So like, if you do something like a lot, you're kind of just like,
you don't want it to become a job. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I'm very sparse with the commissions I take on. I don't do them all the time. I'll go like little spurts. I'll do like 3 or 4 here, and then I'll stop for 6 months. It's usually right when I start to pick up steam. People are like, can you do my logo? And I'm like, well, I'm doing Dim stuff right now. I just, I don't know. I like to take the break, but with Dim, like I said, I fangirled a lot, and I really wanted it to be, something that was, I don't know. I was very into it. So I made a lot of proofs. We went through a lot of iterations. We worked. It was probably the closest I worked with a client too. So it was with Goose, if you're familiar, and he's kind of like the face of DIM, so to speak, and he's the one who's doing all the podcasts and things like that most of the time. But yeah, we went back and forth, and we kind of like, well, we like this about it, we don't like this, and we tweaked, and we just did a lot more than I normally do. But it was less research, and it was more like working directly with the client,
like trial and error kind of thing.
Right. So it's like, yeah, we really like this piece, but maybe let's get away from that. I think the way we originally started was the original DIM logo. They already had a logo. It was like the tricorn with like a cog around it. Essentially, it formed a cog. But they wanted to start being able to sell shirts or merchandise or just really anything. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't do that if you have Destiny IP on your logo. So they had to kind of make a change. And so yeah, I started off with a cog concept, and we had like some Ds and this and that. And eventually, like, we distilled, and this is something I like to do a lot in everything. It's kind of like my jam, which is, you'll notice like a lot of my logos are just like the simplest possible form of something, almost to the point where it might seem lazy, but usually that starts really complex, and I just take things away until I'm like, you still get this, but you don't need all that. Mm-hmm. So that's where we started. It was the one we chose was originally a D, like a real letter D, with a cog in the middle, and we kind of just kept distilling it and just simplifying it and simplifying it and simplifying it until eventually we're like, okay, this is still a D. It's actually 2 Ds now, which is cool because D2 is about to come out. So like, that's neat. And we were like, oh, and it, it kind of makes the shape of the inventory, which is really cool. And so it had more meaning that way, even though there was less to it. So we just kind of worked on that a lot for DIM.
Well, it's nice because just from a design aspect, it gets the message across really quickly, which is nice. The moment you see it, it's instantly recognizable. Like, okay, this is what it is, and this is what it kind of does. Like you said, because it does kind of mimic the inventory layout in a way. So it sometimes less is more.
Minimalistic, I think, is one of the most clever things you could achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, like I said, that's always my goal. I try and start with, just kind of whatever I sketch out, or that's probably one of my things I like to improve on. I don't sketch things out that much anymore. When you're in college and you're taking a design course and you start a logo, you start doing sketches. Like, that's your thumbnails. And you start with 50, 100, some obscene amount, because you're trying to get all of your ideas out of your head and then go further. You want to get everything you can possibly think of and then think of more, because that's when you start to break the mold, is when you're like, all right, I've thought of everything. And then you're like, what else is there? And you can kind of tap into that creative ether or whatever. But I don't do enough of that anymore. I usually just make like a bunch of, I'll do like 10 or 15 quick concepts in Illustrator or something. That's usually what I'll send as my first set of proofs. Like, and I'll let people know, like, these are super high level concepts. Like, what are you feeling from this? Like, what can we take out of this? What do you like? What you don't like? And then we do another set of proofs that are much more refined, and then we go on to the final.
So that's kind of a nice leeway into our next question, though. So what tools do you mainly utilize? So it's Illustrator, and what else?
For logo design, for pretty much everything artistic, I only use Illustrator. I have Photoshop, I have After Effects, and I'm kind of trying to like dabble in After Effects a little bit. I'll use Photoshop if I need to like manip a photo a little bit, or like use some like layer effects and things when I'm making like maybe a banner. But core application is definitely Illustrator. So I got a tablet recently. I'm trying to sketch more, and I sketch in Illustrator too. Like, everything I do is in Illustrator. It's just where I'm comfortable. It's where I learned. Like, I don't know. It's what I use.
So you like self-taught in Illustrator, or do you have any traditional background in Illustrator?
No, so I learned Illustrator when I was doing the design courses in college. Like I said, I learned Photoshop there too, like all the Adobe stuff. Mm-hmm. I actually took like a web design course in college, but back then, it was Dreamweaver. You weren't actually coding anything. You'd basically make a layout like an image of a website in Photoshop, and you take it into Dreamweaver and you make what was called slices at the time. Man, this is super. This is back when the web was new, and you would make each of those slices basically be like an image map. So like you could hover over a button because that button was sliced to be clickable.
Right.
That's the level of stuff. And I got into Flash when I was in college because that wasn't dead yet. So I learned I guess I definitely did do a little scripting there. I learned ActionScript a little bit, but yeah, most of all that was in college when I was doing the degree work.
Very cool. So what kind of tips would you give someone trying to start out in Illustrator? Because I feel like out of the Adobe programs, Illustrator tends to be like the most unapproachable for people. I feel like a lot of people go straight into Photoshop.
It's intimidating if
you
don't know it.
Yeah. So what kind of advice would you give for someone that's like, hey, I want to try and learn Illustrator. What are the basics that I should get down?
Pen tool is probably the biggest and most used thing you'll ever do in Illustrator. Unless you have a tablet or something, you're going to be drawing. But I still today make every single logo with the pen tool in some way. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's more about, so in Photoshop, it's more about kind of taking a traditional medium and digitizing it, whether it's photo manipulation or it's, painting, sketching, whatever. It's basically emulating a real thing.
Right.
Illustrator is not like that. It's a digital concept. Well, I guess the best way to say that you're emulating a physical thing in Illustrator would be to say maybe when you were making like cardboard cutout kind of things, like you're making shapes and you're putting them together, which some artists do that type of thing. But that's kind of the closest physical medium that I think exists. But that's really what Illustrator is. It's all about playing with shapes, and it's all about making, you're not going to be able to do, well, you can. Honestly, you can do whatever you want in Illustrator if you want to get right down to it. With a gradient mesh tool and stuff, like you can go nuts. You can make photorealism in Illustrator if you want.
Yeah.
But I think the core of Illustrator, like what it's kind of meant to be used for, is kind of like that area where you're at the rawest pieces of what visual is. This is shape, and I can turn it into this, or I can do this with it. Or I think that's the easiest way to go about learning Illustrator. Like get like a little, get a logo, bring it in there, and see if you can recreate it. You just use the shape tools, use the pen tool. That's probably the easiest way to just kind of dive in. But I'd say pen tool and shape tools, like that's 90% of what I do in Illustrator.
Some input there too, since a lot of people already have Photoshop or experience with Photoshop, is you can start by practicing with the pen tool in Photoshop. And that might help you become more comfortable with it in Illustrator.
Yeah, it's almost identical. There's tiny little differences.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost identical. So basically, you're dragging a line and making a curve, dragging a line, making a curve. It's fairly simple. That's how I do, man, like almost everything. I used to do I would try and take like a picture. I remember like a movie came out with Robert Downey Jr. like back when I was in college. I don't even remember what movie it was, but he'd gotten in like a bike accident. And he had like a bandage on his hand, and I took that image from the movie and I wanted to recreate it, but in vector. So I just started like taking the shapes of the shadows on him and making like more like a cell shaded kind of style. And I took years, man. There's probably if you put that in like the line mode where all you see is the lines, it's just black because there are so many. Wow. But you can do whatever you want in Illustrator if you want to spend the time. Gradient mesh is crazy. The stuff people do with that is unbelievable. I have no idea. But the coolest thing to me about vector, and the reason I like it the most, is I never have to worry about the size of anything. Whatever I make, however big, however small, I can make it however big and however small I want it in the future. I never have to worry about, it's like when you start painting in Photoshop, if you make like a 500 by 500, that's it. It's always 500 by 500. It will never get bigger, and you will never be able to make it bigger. You can make it smaller.
Is vector in Photoshop.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I remember, I think it was about 2-3 years ago, one of the artist from Rockstar showed how some of the Grand Theft Auto like loading screens with all the cell shading and stuff, how they did that in vector, and it was a really cool kind of video, and I have to find it, but like you said, it's actually pretty amazing how detailed you can get with all the cell shading and stuff like that, and how realistic you can make it look.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that with Illustrator. I think a lot of people look at Illustrator and it's like, oh, that's for logos and that's it. But you can create some beautiful art with Illustrator.
Yeah, it's super cool. I love it to death. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, as far as starting out, get a hold of that pen tool. That's your best friend. Start tracing something if you need to. I mean, that's probably the easiest way. Pick a drawing, move it in. Like, I used to do that a lot when I was learning. Like, I'd take in a sketch. So I'd draw something, I'd sketch it out on paper, take a photo of it, and I'd bring it in, and I'd kind of just make the line work with the pen tool and say, okay, this is, and I've got a bunch of like portraits I would do of friends and stuff that way. And that's kind of how I learned how to do it. I would, because I was still drawing back then. So I'd sketch something out, bring it in, and I'd just go over, stuff that you kind of do in Photoshop these days today with layers. And then you sketch out your original, and then you start to do line work in Photoshop. Same kind of thing, except you're just doing the line work with the pen tool.
That's actually an amazing tip. I wouldn't have, to be honest, I didn't even think of that with Illustrator, but you're getting even cleaner lines because it's vector.
Yeah, they're mathematically perfect.
Yeah. That's funny. I would have never thought of that, to take a picture and just trace over it.
Yeah, so just take your sketch, bring it right in, and then do all your line work in Illustrator. That's cool too, because the way Photoshop and Illustrator work together, you can import as like, what is it, pixels, or then the other option is like it's like a vector object basically.
Yeah.
So you can still scale it if it goes in like really small, if you keep it as a vector object, you can scale it any way you want. It's kind of nice.
So what kind of programs do you use for like programming?
So I code everything I do in JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. When I'm doing like streaming and stuff, and for like the stuff you guys have mentioned, so for pretty much every logo animation I've done except Dim. Dim was actually like a real frame-by-frame animation in Photoshop. But like the Geek one, Hovey one, Siva, Wayfair, all that I do in a website actually called CodePen, which basically just kind of lets you code live and see the result live. And it's a website, so it saves it all for you, which is kind of nice. So think of it kind of like a portfolio website for code, kind of. Code art, because that's what mostly is on there. When I'm doing stuff for like Dim and stuff, I'm using Visual Studio Code, VS Code. It's just a code editor. Does some fancy stuff for you. Has Git integration and all that, so you can do all your pushing and your pulling from the source.
Very cool. And I'm sorry, what did you say the website was?
CodePen. I think is it .io?
CodePen.
CodePen.io. Yeah.
I posted it in chat.
Cool.
And I am InexorableAce on there. No space. You can see all my fun stuff.
Very cool. Well, I think that answers most of the questions as far as programming tips and all of that. Ruby, do you want to take us into the next segment?
Yeah. So I know you do multiple things, and among those things, you also stream. How do you distribute your time between different projects? Make sure you get stuff done.
So that's kind of where like the master of none stuff comes in. I don't think I do. So unless I have commissions, if I have commissions, then those always come first, and that's what I'm going to do no matter what I want to do. But as far as like other than that, that's why I don't take commissions that often, because I like to kind of just do what I feel like doing. So some nights I'll feel like streaming, and I will. I think that was another thing I started doing because I was like, I wonder if I could do that, and and I overspent, and I got the blue microphone, I got the best webcam, I got all this stuff. I got a streaming PC, I got all this stuff. I ended up gaming on it too, so I feel okay about that purchase. But yeah, I just want to see if I could do it. I got like capture card, the whole nine. I did everything, and yeah, I don't know. I'd say that I don't. I'm probably really poor at time management, to be perfectly honest. I kind of just do what I want to do, unless I have commissions. If I have, like I said, if I have commissions, and I've committed to that, and those are what I'll do, and I just take those in order. I'm a kind of when I have a list of things to do, so like at work, or if I have like 4 or 5 commissions, I'm not somebody who can like multitask. So I won't like start 5 commissions and then like I won't do that. I do one thing until I finish it, and then I do the next thing until I finish it, and then I do the next. So it's kind of just very linear for me. I don't like to switch gears because I feel like that wastes a lot of time. Because every time you context shift, you're taking time away. You're ramping up again. So if you keep switching back and forth, at least for me, that's I don't like to do that. I like to kind of just like focus in and like, all right, this is what I'm working on. And I do that. The only thing I kind of context shift on is music. As you saw, you were in a music stream once. I don't finish all of the songs I make. So I'll start making a song and it won't be going anywhere. And I'm kind of just like, I like this, but I have no idea where to go next. So I kind of let those sit for a long time, and then I'll come back to them later when I'm like re-inspired or something. So I don't really have a timeline with music because to me, that's like my ultimate free thing.
Interesting. I want to say, like, for me, I start so many projects, and I think it's like I can't help it. Despite that, it's true. It does take time away if you're ramping up on something and then you switch gears, for sure. I think a lot of people I know are kind of like myself in that sense. But that's really good that you can just go straight in and finish, be done, start a new one, finish, be done. But it's nice that you have music and that's your more organic, free medium.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy that. It's just kind of, I sit down and sometimes like usually when I do a music stream during the day, I'll like hear something or I'll have something in my head and I'll be like, oh, and I'll kind of like play it through in my head a bunch of times. I'm like, oh, I think I could do something like that. So I'll get home and I'll start messing with it. Sometimes it goes somewhere, sometimes it doesn't.
Fair. I think I'll get songs stuck in my head. And sometimes I feel like I have to hear it. I have to remake it or something. So I'll just get it out real quick.
Yeah.
It won't go much further than that, though.
I do that all the time. I'll be at work and I'll just, some jingle I heard on the radio will just stick in my head. Like the Ace Hardware store jingle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't get that out of my head for like 2 weeks. It was driving me nuts. And I feel like that's what music does for me, is it gets stuck in my head and I have to play it over and over again until I'm like sick of it in order to move on.
Imagine having a toddler and you hear nursery rhymes all the time and you get those stuck in your head.
Yeah. I'm a hard pass on that for now.
I wish I could pass.
Yeah, we'll try it. See, this is what I'm hoping. When I have kids, I want to throw real adult music at them so they get hooked on that rather than the kid stuff, because I feel like the kid stuff will drive me more nuts than anyone else.
Yes, absolutely. They repeat. They're short and they repeat very often.
You don't sound bitter at all, Ruby.
You get to that point, it just rolls off your back, It's just, but you're right, that True Value song, oh my God, I can't believe you just name dropped that one. But that's the point, like, it gets stuck in your head.
Yeah.
But along with...
I can only imagine people like Ace who have actual musical abilities, like how... If I had that, I would be even more nuts about it, because I'd be like him. I'd want to recreate it at that point.
Do a remix of the True Value song.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done that. I do that with games. I do like a lot of stuff with games. So like I had when I was playing Final Fantasy 15, when you're in the menu, like customizing your car, and you just switch between like the various menus. Cindy just keeps saying the same lines over and over. And if you switch like to a beat, you can kind of get like this thing going. And I did a whole thing of it, and I was like, this is really dumb. But
is that on your SoundCloud?
That is, yes.
Oh my gosh, I gotta find it now. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yes, I've definitely done that before though. And Shaq's, like I've got one with Shaq's in there.
Oh no way!
Gotta have 7 of them. I mean, come on.
I'm really excited to check out your SoundCloud now.
Should remix. I wonder if you would catch any inspiration musically going through the Whisper of the Worm quest in Destiny 2. When you get to the green room, it's got that really kind of pixelated old school like 8-bit soundtrack to it in there.
I'm gonna catch a lot of crap for this.
Oh,
but I play Destiny with the music off. I always have my own music on. I don't think I've heard any Destiny music. I mean, I buy the albums.
All right. So when you beat the Whisper, it's one of the rewards on the Bungie store. You get that song.
Okay.
So you could actually pick it up there. But dude, you're not alone with that. I can rarely, if I'm playing with other people, I can't have the music on.
Yeah, I turn their voices off and everything. I just turn like subtitles on. I mean, unless I'm going through story, and I like to do that alone anyway most of the time.
Yeah, same.
So I guess I do. I hear everything once. Like I hear all the story music once because I'll do the full experience when I do the first time story stuff.
So I'm very similar. Do you like to do that because of kind of like the immersion value of it, where you're kind of playing alone, so you get that whole power guardian trip?
Yeah, I think even if I am like, sometimes I'll do like in tandem, like we'll be in the Discord group, I'll mute everybody and stuff just like while I'm doing stuff. Yeah, I think it's just like, I don't want to miss anything. I want to, like the first time I do it, like I want to get that like full, that's the kind of a cool thing about Destiny that's different from most MMOs. Like it has that single player story aspect to it. Like most MMOs, that's not a real thing. Mm-hmm. Everything you do is done MMO fashion. There's really not that kind of stuff. But so I like to get that like single player Halo-esque experience the first time I play a Destiny expansion. I like that. Like that's something I really like actually. And then after that, when you're hanging out in Crucible or Gambit, I don't need to hear the Drifter say ding 4,000 times again. I don't need to hear him say "Cabal on the field" anymore. I don't need to hear that anymore. Been there.
I hear you. No, I'm the same way. Like lights off, headphones, the surround sound headphones on, everything for the first playthrough, and then after that, it's like I don't care after that. But that first playthrough, it's like my wife came in one time when I was in the middle. I think it was in Destiny 1 in like the third mission, and she came in and said something and like interrupted it, and I was like, I have to play this whole mission over again.
Start over. Yeah. Completely
ruined it.
Where do you go from there? Did you play it again?
Absolutely, yeah. I had to because it just ruined. Like for me, that's Destiny is the ultimate space cowboy magic fantasy, and me growing up in the West, I've always had that cowboy fantasy power trip kind of thing, and then Destiny just adds magic to it. So it was like the first playthroughs, you got to do it solo, don't have any interruptions, kind of thing. And if someone interrupts you, you start over. It is what it is.
I'm there, definitely.
I'm there. Nice.
By the way, hunters for the win.
Oh yes.
Don't even start.
It had to be done, Joe.
Get out of here with that.
We have capes.
Mm-hmm.
No capes.
The guy that commented that, I was dying. For those of you that don't know, Joe posted this whole thing about Titans being, superior, yada, yada, yada. So I had a comment on it, letting him know that, hunters are the better choice kind of thing. And I gave my list of reasons. And then someone took the clip from the Incredibles where she was explaining why capes are bad kind of thing. It just had me dying. I could not stop laughing at that.
I'm just waiting for Bungie to actually put that in the game where you think a Guardian's going to make it, and then at the last minute, a Thrall or something grabs him by the cape and pulls him back in the room, and it's going to go, no capes.
The one, oh my gosh, I forget her name, Pain something. She did the drawing with the Roomba guy.
Yes.
Where the cape was getting eaten up and everyone else was escaping. That was pretty funny.
I used to put on in Destiny 1, I used to put on the little scarf that you start off with just because I liked some of the armors looked cool without capes.
Yeah. Why there's no poncho yet, no one knows. You know what I mean? Like Hawthorne's got the poncho. Can the rest of us get the poncho? That would be great.
I also miss the Taniks cloak, the one without the hood. That's just cool not to have a hood sometimes.
Yeah, it's just a little. I'm telling you, man. I'm waiting for a duster cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Ace, are you a hunter?
Oh yes.
Could you not tell from his awesomeness?
And in D1, that's all I had. I didn't even make the other characters. In D2, I decided that I would. And then on PlayStation, I got them pretty far. I remade them on PC mostly just to test in dim so that I have 3 characters and I can test everything, but I haven't really done anything with them.
Okay, fair.
Still just Hunter. I don't have that much time, to be perfectly honest. I play a lot, but I don't know how people do 3 characters and do all. I have no idea.
3 characters across multiple platforms.
I have no idea.
Oh no, not that. But I used to have all 3 during Destiny 1, and I loved them all, and I used to keep them up to date up until the last season. I think I'm still missing 1 or 2 light levels on Titan and Hunter. I carried them over, but I can't play them. I stick to Warlock, my main character.
I played Warlock a lot when they had that one Mayhem where you could Infinite Nova Bomb. That was a lot of fun.
I just remember all the rage over that.
That was super fun. I had a great time.
I have a friend who...
I had fun with laser tag too when that happened.
Oh, I loved laser tag.
I wish that was just a game mode.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
So much fun.
I wish they kind of would have done the same thing with Lord of Wolves. So the way they fixed the whole this gun is crazy OP is they had Xur sell it. Just have Xur sell Lord of Wolves. Then we can all go be crazy and ridiculous for a little bit, and then you fix it, and it's fine.
I think the most fun I had during that whole Prometheus Lens laser tag weekend was going into trials with it.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the funnest nights that I've had, just goofing off with a broken meta in that game.
That meta was the one meta where I wish it was more than 8 or more than 66. You know what I mean? If there was 20 on 20 with laser tag, oh my gosh.
Oof.
It would be chaos, but it would just be stupid fun. You know what I mean? There would be no point to it.
It was chaos with 8 people running around with those things.
I still see people using it, tapping the trigger, the only reason you did that was to get the bug to proc. But I still see people using it that way, and I think it's hilarious.
Hey, you got to come back and try it every so often. I mean, you never know when they put a patch in for something else that it'll tweak another thing. People are really hopeful that it's going to come back, and that one guy is going to be right there in the front, just leading the way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you'll see a Twitter post going, "Is this right?" And then all of a sudden, it's laser tag weekend all over again.
Well, they did that one patch where Cold Heart was suddenly really good for a little bit, kind of thing. It just kind of went opposite. Instead of Prometheus Lens, it was Cold Heart.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah. But Ruby's
we derailed hard.
Yeah, we did. We did. Depending on time, I might leave all that in. I'll leave it all in. I'll edit this. I'll stop making more work for myself. Ruby, you want to bring us into the next one?
Oh, goodness. So you've been around a lot, and I'm very curious to know what you'd say for this piece. If you've listened to our past episodes, you'll know that we generally ask our guests for a random fact from anything you've learned that you find funny or interesting.
So I actually posted about this on Twitter not that long ago. And this actually came from doing research on a project, which is how you usually start the other ones. So
yes,
kind of a funny story. I don't really remember how I came across this research, to be perfectly honest, but like I said, I made a post about this on Twitter very recently, actually, because somebody said, I saw something. Oh, I was in my cafeteria at work, and there was a sign. There was a sign with a banana on it, and it said, "Naturally perfect."
Oh.
Well, I had learned previously that bananas are not naturally perfect. Bananas are clones.
Mm-hmm.
Every banana, the bananas we eat, 90% of all bananas are literally a clone of another banana. It's all one genetic copy. Because normal bananas have a ton of seeds in them, so if you make a banana without seeds, you can't cultivate it anymore. You have to clone it. So all the bananas we eat are just clones of another banana. And if you've ever had banana flavored candy, Runts or anything like that, you'll know that banana flavored candy does not taste like banana. The reason for that is because we used to have a different banana that was cloned and was called the Gros Michel. And that banana was, it was a little fatter and it was sweeter, but a strain of fungus got into it. And because it has no genetic genetic diversity, it was killed off like very quickly because there's nothing you can do. Once, you know, a carcinogen gets in, that's it. With no genetic diversity, there's nothing to protect it. So that banana is no longer with us. So now we have a new banana, and it's a clone. All bananas are clones.
Oh my God.
This is way better than mine. Yeah. Like,
wow. I'm never going to look at a banana the same ever again. And I'm going to sit here and wonder if the candy banana is what bananas tasted like back in the 50s or something.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm going to be up all night looking
There's still people alive that like
the original strain of banana.
I think the new one is called Cavendish. It's a Cavendish banana.
Holy schmolies. That's the best one we've had yet.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
We're taking notes down on this one.
Saving that one.
Yeah, I think
down.
Not too long ago too. I think that they were worried that like this particular banana was also going to have the same problem. I'm not sure whatever became of that. Hopefully, it's okay. We're going to run out of bananas eventually.
Now it makes me wonder if watermelons are cloned too. The seedless watermelons.
Yeah, if it's a seedless one, I'd assume it would have to be. Normal watermelons have seeds, so you can plant those. But even normal water, so like, there's also like that whole, you know, the whole like non-GMO movement. That's not real. Anything we eat today has been genetically modified. Tomatoes, you can't eat a tomato. It's nightshade. You will die if you eat a real tomato. It's been genetically modified so we can eat it. Any
That's why they used to throw them at people.
Whoa. Wait. Go back. Wait. Tomatoes are actually nightshade?
Yeah, it's part of the nightshade family. They are naturally poisonous to us, and we made them not poisonous so that we could eat them. We also made them bigger and redder so that we could feed more people. Pretty much every produce that you ever eat has been made so much bigger. So like corn, real corn, is half the size of what our corn is. We've made it bigger because we have to feed a lot of people, and we do a lot with corn. So pretty much there's really no such thing as non-GMO if you're like being real.
Yeah, you know all the old videos of people throwing tomatoes at like prisoners and stuff like that? It's because tomatoes used to be poisonous. So they
they weren't wasting food. You couldn't eat it anyway.
Yeah, so they were throwing them at people because it was poisonous.
Wait, why did they even pick it then?
To throw at people.
Well, they didn't know. Yeah, they didn't know it was poisonous at the time.
So it was back in the day when you had a headache and somebody put a drill to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're exactly the most educated people.
They're like, oh, it looks like a fruit. Let's eat it. Well, we used to eat off of lead plates. I mean, let's be real.
You don't still? I do.
I was just going to ask if you had your drinking horn.
Only off camera.
Oh, yeah.
No, that was good. Thank you for that. That was some. I can't even form it to words. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
that was probably the coolest fun fact. Tyler's rivet story is pretty good. I mean, he rabbit holed hard on that one, but
bananas is better.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna. I really, really want to tell my 10-year-old daughter tomorrow when she's having a banana going, you know, it's not real.
She's going to be like, yes, it is.
I think there's like a video too. Again, YouTube. I'm sure you can go on YouTube.
Oh, I got it written down.
The University of YouTube.
I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to rabbit hole this like crazy.
Yep.
You might actually see something on my Twitter about it.
Yeah, like I posted the other day. I saw that and I was like, no, they're not. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you. I love it. Ruby, you want to take us into our final, most exciting part? I love this part.
Hey, do you have pen and paper on hand?
I do.
Or I mean, I guess you could use.
He sounds hesitant. He's like,
I'm scared of this part, but I do.
I mean, you could use Illustrator and just sketch there if you want.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do.
Yeah, so usually we'll have chat come up with a drawing prompt, and in 60 seconds, you get to draw it.
So fun.
The Resolute's in chat, so you should have a little fear. He's got some pretty crazy ideas.
I have lots. This is like major anxiety thinking about this part. Oof.
Fun. So if anybody in chat if you're watching right now, we're to the part of the show where we ask our guests to do a 60-second drawing challenge if you're never been here before. So if you would like to suggest the subject or subjects, some examples that we've had in the past, we've had ninja hamsters. We've had, what was it? It was Zombie Bob Ross.
Oh, Zombie Bob Ross, yeah.
Steambot robots.
Steambot or
steampunk.
Steampunk robots, yeah.
That actually, I think that was more accurate. So
Spider pigs.
Spider pig. So if you want to suggest something, throw out an idea. I got all night, chat. No, I'm kidding.
Gotta remember, Joe, they're like 30 seconds behind, man.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I always forget about that. You'd think I would remember that.
They're doing their own 30-second challenge, just trying to come up with stuff.
They're thinking one-legged T-Rex with a top hat.
Oh, the Star Bar seconds that. She's like, mm-hmm. That just reminds me of T-Rex's logo.
See if I can get my tablet working here.
Because isn't his the dinosaur with a top hat and like a monocle?
Something adorable.
Yeah.
He had his updated recently, I think, too.
They all do. I feel like that group of streamers, they constantly, like, every 6 months get like an updated revamped logo, and it's always awesome.
Yeah, I think Twaz does that. Anybody that Twaz does, he'll usually go back and
because they have him like on staff, right? Where they pay him. I think
I'm not sure how it works, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I know Twaz did a lot of work for the Guardian Con logo and like all the banners and everything, and I think did something for the Rare Drop Awards.
Yeah,
did a bunch of stuff, but I guess Con is going to be stepping in and doing some work for the new convention for next year. So we'll see a mashup between probably Twaz's talent and Con's talent.
You know, I don't want to override chat, but I was just thinking of something since we got so tickled over the bananas. Like, what if we did like a banana gun or something cool?
A banana gun?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A one-legged T-Rex with a top hat and a banana gun. No.
We got to give him 2 minutes.
Yeah, but like, we got 60 seconds.
But with tomato toes. Tomatoes.
Ew.
Why is my
toes freak me out, so
not working?
You might want to skip that one.
Toes freak you out?
Yeah, you know, appendages kind of freak me out. Have you ever sat there and just kind of wiggled your fingers and you're like, wow, that's actually really creepy that I have complete command over these digits?
Yeah, I guess.
If you... This is too much alone time on the rig is what it is.
I can imagine you at 3:00 in the morning going,
tomatoes, a foot with tomatoes as toes. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was though. You're absolutely right. You sit there and you're like, all right, nothing's going on. And then you kind of like wiggle your hand and you're like, wow, that's actually really creepy.
Then you get a call and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What?
They're like, don't worry, this is perfectly normal.
You know what gets me? How like my 2-year-old daughter will like spread her like toes like fingers. Like it's like she can space them out so far. It's just like little monkey feet. I mean, how do you do that? I'm like looking at my foot and they've been in like pretty much like work boots for like the last 20 years. So it's like, and I used to rock. Does
your pinky toe start climbing over your other toe because of it?
Yeah, a little bit actually, because the climbing shoes, I used to wear them a half size or a full size smaller than what my foot size is to get rid of the negative space. Because when you're outdoors climbing traditionally, you don't want negative space in your feet because that's essentially an extension of your grip. So I would used to walk on like the sides of my feet to get up to the climb because it would just be so tight you couldn't. And the way climbing shoes are, they're arched.
Yeah.
So you can't get like a flat walk on them. Yeah, but no, yeah. I can't spread my toes like that. Mine are more for like I could put my foot into a crack of a climb and be completely fine. But
don't ask you to walk in them.
Don't ask me to walk in them or pick up a pen with my foot. It ain't gonna happen. This is just rambling.
This is rambling, but I have to point this out. Squared T just said he can move the veins in the back of his hand.
Oh my
so,
God.
As a medical professional, I'm gonna let you know that's not normal. That is definitely off.
Normal? Those arteries, you can move those.
You should not be able to manually manipulate your veins and artery.
Noted.
Oh, sorry.
Squared, see a doctor.
Oh, no.
How you doing, Ace? You all set? Did you get your tablet all ready to roll?
Or did we decide what we're doing?
Are we doing tomato toes?
No. We'll skip the tomato
T-Rex
toes.
with the top hat, is that?
We'll rock out the T-Rex with the top hat.
All right.
Let me do a quick little ditty, and I'll try and blow up your screen as much as possible.
I'll get that stopwatch ready. There we go.
All right, so T-Rex with a top hat. Okay. 60 seconds. All right.
I'll give you
By
a
the way,
countdown.
since Squared T's in chat as well, I'm really sad about the freaking Spider-Man. My younger brother didn't end up going, so me and you both missed out on that.
Aw.
He was going to pick us up this Lego Spider-Man at Comic-Con,
I read
but
that.
he had to work.
Oh, you should have got a hold of Jonesy. He probably went. He goes every year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was almost going to ask David.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey,
He
while
would've.
you're there.
Dude, no doubt he would have.
I
I
know.
feel like he would have, yeah.
He was a pretty cool guy, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to give you a countdown. Like
Okay.
a 3, 2, 1, then you start. Then I'll give you a 30-second warning, and then I'll give you a 10-second warning.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, start.
Oh my gosh, this is in Illustrator as well.
Yep.
I love illustrating
Dang.
drawing sketches. It's so good. It feels so good.
Well,
You do promote it every so often. You one of the first shows you suggested, get into Illustrator and draw something.
Yeah. 30 seconds in. Aww.
It's adorable.
It is. I feel like he only needed 30 seconds if he wanted to actually get the idea just on paper, because he's already got the shape in there really nice. 10 seconds left.
Illustrator's about to crash. We did it.
Oh no! Capture it if you can.
Look at that timing.
Perfect.
Recap so you don't lose it.
Oh my goodness.
He's gorgeous.
There we go.
I was about to say, it turned out adorable.
He's cute. All right.
There it is.
Do your,
That's
do your-
awesome. Do your worst, Illustrator.
I wonder if it'll do a recovery save for you.
Probably. It's decent about that.
Yeah, because we say
wants to know if that was all blob brush.
I think I just used a regular brush. I should have used blob brush though. No recovery. Rip.
Okay. I'm glad we got a screen cap save. It goes.
Did you get a screen cap?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Because we're starting to form the calendar for the end of the year.
This needs to be printed with the screen cap elements of the UI of Illustrator.
Huh.
And the little crash dialogue somewhere.
Really?
In the spirit of what, the woes of artists.
That was the thing back in the day, man. You'd start working on Photoshop and 2 hours later it'd crash on you and you'd lose all your work.
That's why autosave is beautiful.
Yeah, Autosave usually does a great job, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know why with my new tablet Illustrator's been crashing a lot lately. I gotta figure something out.
Drivers or something, usually drivers, but
Yeah.
I'm afraid of updating my Wacom driver because I did it at work and it screwed over so many things regarding my ability to use it. I get weird dialogue on
Like every Mac update ever.
Yeah. It happens with the pen. Like if you you're trying to make a light line with a pen and then you kind of pick it up a little bit. So like dot, dot, dots real quick. The Illustrator does not like that.
I'm afraid of updating.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. That was less scary than I thought it would be.
Less painful. Yeah, you actually had most of it down within the 30 seconds, which I feel bad for all the guests that came on when we were doing 30, because now I feel like they got gypped their extra 30.
Yeah, I tried to watch as many as I could. So I listen to the podcast, but then like you hear those parts, so I try and go back and like go through the YouTube videos to pick that part out.
You're like, oh yeah,
you did a good job. Who'd you have on before me? I can't think of his name right now.
David.
Yeah, that was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to follow this. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, him, Cobb, and Clinton, probably the least sweat broken out of those guys, where they're just like, oh, you want that? Here you go. But I feel like all those guys work for speed anyway. So,
I mean, David, he had a booth at San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend, and he was pumping out custom pieces in like 45 minutes.
Yeah, he finished like 4 or 5 paintings or something like that, like actual paintings, gouache and all of that. I was like, geez, man.
Yeah.
Takes me like 6 months to finish a painting.
Yeah, that's intense. I couldn't do that. I mean, I could probably like throw a logo together in 2 minutes, like something, conceptually, but not, that's a whole painting. I couldn't even fathom.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
This guy is ticking for sure.
Well, I got a question for you. When you're working on a project, or when you're tinkering around and not working on a music project, do you listen to music or audiobooks while you're working on something?
Oh,
yeah. So, I usually try and stay away from anything with words, because that will mess me up. But yeah, like I'll listen to a lot of, like ambient kind of stuff, or I like, what's it called? Like your synth wave kind of, your 80s revival kind of stuff. I really like that. Yeah, definitely. It's same thing. It's same kind of stuff I listen to when I play Destiny as well. So like any activity, I like to have like some kind of music behind it.
Nice. Well, we're wrapping it up. We're at the end of the show.
We're missing something. We're not done yet.
What are we missing?
How'd you come up with your name?
Oh.
This is actually a cool story. It's probably one of my favorite stories. All right. So when I was a kid, after school, my dad used to work at a sportsplex. It had like batting cages, like inside batting cages, like an indoor soccer field, like that kind of thing. And it also had arcade machines. So like after school and also on the weekends, like early mornings and the weekends, like he would open the sportsplex or whatever. And early in the morning on the weekends is when the guy would come service the arcades and take out the quarters and, do all that. So I got to be there when, he would take out the quarters. And when you have the little cabinet open in an arcade, you can just hit the button and give yourself as many games as you want. So he would always do that for me, because I was just like, I was the kid who was with his dad working or whatever, and I didn't have anything to do. So my favorite cabinet was Street Fighter 2, and that's what I would always play. And so he'd always give me free games, like 30 free games when he'd come in on the weekends. So I played a lot of Street Fighter 2 arcade cabinet, and I got really good, and I got the high score. And when I got to the high score, you have to put in your initials. And I wanted something like really cool. I was young at the time, and I was like, oh, I got to put something like cool in here. And I don't know, Ace is what came to mind. It was like 3 letters, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing to like have Ace at the top of the scoreboard on an arcade cabinet. So that's what I did. And ever since then, I've always put Ace in arcade cabinets. Like I have a Galaga machine, so I'm very good at Galaga. So every place I see a Galaga, I always get the top score, and I always put an Ace. Like, I don't know, it's just like something that I always thought was really cool. But as I began, like, becoming more of a, getting into more games and playing more, I learned that Ace is a pretty common name in games. A lot of people use it. It's everywhere. It's the first thing that's taken. You will never get the OG Ace. It's not going to happen. You got there too late. Sorry. So especially when I wanted to keep the name, and it's my nickname in real life too. So that's what people call me. So it's kind of just stuck. But when it got to like the branding aspect of it. So like I wanted to use it for streaming, and I use it in like games and stuff. And I use it in my design. I wanted a word to go with it that was unusual, that was not used. And I came up with inexorable. I've always kind of liked playing with words that don't get used very often. So like when we were talking about my music, the other one was lilt. Like a lot of people don't use the word lilt anymore, but it means to move musically. And I just thought that was like a really awesome name for a DJ to have. So I don't know. I like to do that kind of stuff. But inexorable is essentially the opposite of to exercise, like, you know, the exorcist kind of thing. It's something that cannot be removed. It's something that cannot be moved. It's an immovable object, essentially. So it's kind of like this thing that is always there. It's unexercisable, but inexorable. So yeah, that's kind of where I came up with that. So it's a very unique thing that you don't see that everywhere. I always get the InexorableAce name because nobody's going out there doing that. So yeah, that's where that came from.
That's really cool.
I love that.
So if I hit up the East Coast and look around cabinet machines, Galaga machines in particular, and see Ace,
that's me.
He's like, that's me.
That's me. Street Fighter 2 and Galaga. Every time I see a cabinet, I will get the high score. I have to. It's like, I will say, there's like a little thing like an Alamo and kind of like a, I don't know what you call them, like a shopping center kind of thing near us. And we always go to the movies there, but there's this shop there that's like a billiards and like outdoor furniture kind of place where you can like buy stuff for your like game room or whatever. They have a Galaga machine in there. Every time we go by, I always go in, and if I don't still have the high score, which I usually do, I'll get it again.
He's like, I go and destroy that other guy.
Yeah, you got to. I remember the first Guardian Con. That's a kind of an interesting story too. Not the first one. The first one I went to, which was 2 years ago. They had a Galaga machine there, and this guy and his son were playing at the Galaga machine. And I would wait. You know, I was playing it cool. I was like, let's see what they get. And then I'd go
sizing them up.
Exactly. Yeah. You'd kind of walk by and you'd be like, okay. And then, and then I'd go and immediately beat them once they left. And then they'd come back and they're like, what happened? This ace guy happened. So then they would play. They'd play until they beat it. And we kept doing that like the whole day at Guardian Con. And eventually, like I got my high score, and it was like closing out for the night. And so I left, and I assumed my score was okay. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm good. I don't think they can beat that. And we don't have much time anyway. So I'm at the airport. I'm going home, and I see them. They're on the same airport as me, and they're getting on the same plane. So I must have lived somewhere close to me or had a connection. But I see them there, and we recognize each other. And they're like, so we beat that high score. And I was like, no.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely good times.
That's the one time I failed at the Galaga high score.
Wow.
And I can never get it back now.
If only you had those things back, you know, those arcades, classic style.
Yeah.
We have one by me. There's a place that opened up a couple years ago, about six streets over, but it's an old school arcade. Some guy just put it together. There's a bunch of old cabinets. There's got to be at least 60 different cabinet machines in there. Bunch of pretty much everything and anything. I mean, it's like going to Dave & Buster's, and it's not Dave & Buster's. Like, it was an old school, like Aladdin's Castle arcade.
Yeah.
So I still have Aladdin's Castle coins.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you guys had those.
Yeah, Aladdin.
Did you? It was a big franchise? All right. I wasn't sure if it was like a local arcade franchise here, if it branched out.
Yeah, the only arcade we have here anymore, it's inside a comic book store, and it's like a penny arcade, and it's all the old school Atari games and stuff, you know, Pac-Man and, like you said, Atari and Snake and all those ones, but still pretty cool. But it's like the same 6 people that play it, so you know who's at the top no matter what.
I don't have anything like that near me. I wish they did. I go to work for Dallas sometimes, though, and they have a cidercade there. Or it's like a cidery and an arcade They've got some awesome games there. They've got like old, like they've got Crystal Castles and stuff in there. It's like crazy. I love that place.
Wow. My favorite arcade game back in the day was Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. That game was so frustrating, but so much fun.
The first Rage game right there.
Yeah, hands down.
See, I almost had traumatic experiences at the arcade because my father's a gamer, and he would sit at a cabinet like on the same like quarter or token, while me and my brother like just as soon as you die, you'd move on to the next game. And it was sometimes really quick. So we were burning through it like there were slot machines, and he'd still be just playing the same thing. And then almost every single time he would have a line of people to play him. And if he just had like 40 minutes just to learn the buttons and on one character, he would pretty much rule anybody else. So it was, you could never play him. It's like, I'm going to play a game against my dad. And he'd beat you within the first round or something like that. It's like, thanks, Dad. You're supposed to let the kid win, but not you. No. So if we do get a booth for next year's, Guardian Con or GCX, we might have to invest in power at the booth and put a mini Galaga cabinet in the back of our booth, just so maybe Ace can have a redeemer there.
Get high scores.
Yeah,
they sell them at Walmart now.
Yeah,
like
I know
the little compact.
Yeah, I'll ship it
Pretty
down.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
love that
I'm
Galaga machine.
sure I can pick one up in town. I saw one when I was in Orlando at the Walmart.
Just pick it up there.
You know what? You might be able to ship to store and then catch an Uber, and then just tell the Uber guy to just wait a second. And, request like a Suburban so you can get it.
I was about to say you need like the Uber Plus or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry, your Hyundai ain't gonna fit it. We'll wait till the next.
Amazon now.
Wanted the Chevy, not the Prius.
Awesome. Well, before we go, does anybody have any final comments or questions or anything? It's like Tyler's formulating something, or no? I was trying to read your facial expression.
My stuff, he answers straight away. I mean, all the stuff he does in Illustrator blows my mind because my brain art-wise doesn't work that way. So I'm always just blown away by people that deal in vector and create the artwork that they do. So getting to kind of pick his brain about that was really cool.
Oh, what blows my mind is when I see him coding live.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Vector coding, any of that stuff.
Animating, that's insane.
Yeah.
I'm so used to seeing a timeline.
I really enjoyed checking out your website because if you click on one at codepen.io, the coding is right next to it.
Yeah. Yep.
So you can literally see the entire code of what's making this move and do everything. And it's absolutely just incredible. I don't know how you guys are able to, I can't even fathom how to do that. I know anything can be learned, but kudos to you. That's just epic.
Yeah, CodePen's super cool. Like if you ever have the inkling to like learn about something or you want to like see how something is done, there's just about everything you could think of on there. Just like normal stuff. You want to like learn how to make a drop-down menu, search for drop-down menu. There's 100 in there and the code's right next to them. So if it's ever something you want to get into, CodePen's a pretty cool resource for that too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it as like it was like a art station.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything. Anything that somebody wants to code. I do a lot of art with it because I try and like bridge that gap, I guess. Like I said, I like to challenge myself to see if I could make art out of code. I don't know, because I think that's fun because I like torture. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on there. There's like UIs and it's crazy. People make the craziest stuff on this website. They do like monthly and weekly challenges too. So like I have one on here called Fire. They were doing a monthly challenge where like each week of the month was a different element and you could do whatever you wanted, I made like the bottom like of the website lights on fire, but some people will do like 3D renderings and some people will do like a little illustration and some people do pixel art. You do whatever you want. Like some people, it's crazy. that stuff. Like, I'm amazed looking at this site half the time, just like scrolling through the picked pens or whatever. It's people do some insane stuff.
I love the fire one. It's just so mesmerizing.
Yeah, I really like that. I was trying to, like, you know, the style of, like, when you see those, like, space scenes sometimes and they have, like, the really bright colors and, like, the wavy, like, kind of like asteroid trails, if you know what I'm talking about. I kind of tried to emulate that, but with fire. I guess it worked out because I do really like the way it turned out.
Just switch it to blue and it'll look like the cinematic meteor.
Yeah.
Thing particles.
That's awesome. Well, before we head out and close out, Ace, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and find, you know, more of your art and content and all that fun stuff?
I would say the easiest place is probably just inexorable.design. That's my website, and that's got links to the Twitter and everything. Email, I think it does anyway. I hope it does. If not, Twitter is just InexorableAce, no spaces. Pretty much everything is. Like I said, I think the only thing that's different is the SoundClouds that we talked about. But other than that, it's pretty much InexorableAce everywhere, including the CodePen.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us. Thank you, Ace, so much for coming on with us. It was so much fun having you on. I can't wait to see what you have planned in the future. Everything you do is just absolutely amazing. And that banana story is going to be stuck in my mind for a little while now. That was a really good one. No, but thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Check us out on YouTube, iTunes, and Podbean. You could also find us on Google Play. If you weren't able to catch the live show, we do upload the live stream, so you can all that fun stuff on YouTube. And you can also find us on Twitter. And if you want, be the first person to give us a review on iTunes.
Ooh, pressure.
There might be a prize in for you.
Oh.
Tyler has it, just so you know.
I don't have it.
So when you do the review, DM Tyler, because he's handling all that stuff. That's the way he told me last week.
Hey, you know what? Maybe.
I'm just kidding. All right, everybody. Thank you again for hanging out with us. Catch you next time.